Hi guys, this is Dr. Gonzalez. I'm going to go through a presentation for you here on skills for success in my online classes. And just so you know, these are skills that you can use in any class, not just mine. So here we go. So this video was made for my psychology or social work 4370 class, which is the non-experimental research methods and statistics. But like I said in the first slide there, these are skills that could be used in any class, and not just asynchronous online courses. You can use a lot of these skills in your in-person classes as well. So online classes versus in-person classes. So in-person classes are definitely a lot more interactive. And I would absolutely love to be there in a classroom teaching you guys one person in front of all of y'all. I love that. I absolutely adore teaching in any way, shape, or form. But online classes are very different from in-person classes. This class is 100% asynchronous and online. So what that means is everything is preset, pre-recorded, and uploaded. There is no specific time when we all sit down together and log on and have a kumbaya. Okay. Now, I do have office hours, and you'll have a Zoom link and you can all join in on that if you wanted to, but that's the only time where we might be live talking to one another. So asynchronous classes generally are going to be more self-paced, and they're going to put a lot of the responsibility on you, okay, as being self-paced. So you're responsible for planning out your assignments, blocking off time for readings, whatever. So I'm not there to remind you every day or 3 times a week or whatever that in-person class would meet. So there's fewer reminders of things that you have to do. I'm try to do my best to say, hey guys, you know what? Exam 1 is due next Thursday. But you're not going to get that 3 or 4 times before it's right there ready for you to go. So those two things in and of itself make it much easier for you to fall behind in. And once you've fallen behind, sometimes it can be like a black hole, and you just keep getting further and further behind. And before you know it, the summer semester is here and you're hopelessly lost and can't pass the course. And I don't want that to happen to anybody. So one of the bottom lines that you've got to remember with asynchronous online courses is that your study skills and habits are going to serve you better than your intelligence. Okay? If you're one of those people that find that school is really easy and everything comes naturally, I was like that for most of my life until I took my first online course in 2001, a long time ago. And I made my first C in that class, and I ended up retaking it because I just couldn't live with myself. But it was not what I anticipated. And granted, online courses have changed in 25 years, but I seriously underestimated it. Now, I hope most of you have already taken an online class. None of the things that I'm telling you are going to be surprising, but put it in your mind now, I'm going to treat this class just like I would an in-person course, and you will be successful if you do that. So the number one rule for being successful in my online courses is to absolutely treat this course just like an in-person class. Now you're going to need to make a couple of little exceptions and adaptations, but approach it just as you would any other class where you would be expected to go in and sit and work 3 hours a week. Okay. So the more we can copy and mimic that in-person routine, the more we're going to be successful. And you'll find out through the syllabus review that I'm going to do in a separate video, and some of the other orientation stuff that I have for my course, is that every week there's going to be at least one lecture video. Okay, sometimes I break it down into 2, probably no more than 3, but those lecture videos are where new content is presented to you, just like I would in a regular in-person class. I would have my screen up on the board and my PowerPoint presentation and my little clicker button, and we would go through it. And the only difference would be is that would be interactive. You would have the chance to stop me and ask for clarification. So that is one thing that's missing in an online course. That's why I'm going to give you some techniques and suggestions that will help you to be successful and to treat this more like it would be an in-person course. So the first thing that I'm going to suggest that you do is to create a weekly routine, okay? Choose some times during the week and treat those times as class times. So normally this is a 3-hour class. It might meet Monday, Wednesday, Friday for an hour, or it might meet Tuesday, Thursday for an hour and 30 minutes, or it might meet on Monday nights for 3 hours. But the bottom line is that if I were given this course in person, I would have 3 contact hours with you to work. So I want you to block off time in your calendar and take the lecture videos and anticipate that you're going to have to put some time into them, okay? You're also going to have assignments and other things that you're going to have to do, readings. So I'd like you to find a time on your calendar and in your life to block it off to Dr. Gonzalez's class, right? You're going to block that time off in a calendar. You can use a paper calendar. You can use a digital calendar. It really doesn't matter. You can use both. But you're going to block that time off and you're going to treat that time as sacred. That time is your time that you are dedicating to this course, whether it be watching that lecture video or doing a statistical analysis or taking an exam. Now, you're going to do your best to protect that time. That time is going to be sacred. But at the same time, I understand that life happens. I'm a mom. I'm a teacher. I'm a daughter. I'm a friend. I have lots of roles, just like you guys have lots of roles. And with roles come responsibilities. And balancing those responsibilities with your course in mind is what's going to help you set yourself up for success. Sure, something might happen during that blocked off time where you normally would be doing your work for this class. You might have a sick child, or maybe your work schedule changes, or your car breaks down and your internet goes out, or whatever. So flexibility is one of the benefits of having an online course. But at the same time, try to stick to that sacred blocked off time as much as you can and try to recoup and get back on that routine whenever possible. So with regard to that routine, how much time should you plan to dedicate to this course each week to be successful? Well, it's a 3-hour course, so I would recommend blocking off 6 to 9 hours, however you can make that happen. You might work Monday through Friday and only have Saturday to dedicate to this class or whatever. You might dedicate the whole Saturday, and that's totally fine, whatever works for you. But the breakdown that I would anticipate if I were in your shoes is I would think it would take you about 3 hours to watch the lecture videos and take notes on them, okay? That's a very big estimate. It's probably going to take a lot less than that. I would also anticipate up to 2 hours needed for doing the readings and for watching extra stuff. Like I do an assignment video, and that's usually a video breaking down with a screen capture and everything, showing you what your assignment is going to look like. And then I would also anticipate up to 3 hours for doing those assignments. That includes, just a homework assignment or a discussion or prepping a part of your paper. That's the big component of your grade at the end, or taking an exam. Again, this is an estimate. It may take you less. It may take you more. I don't know. But it's not going to be something that you're going to be able to wing in 3 hours on Sunday evening. So whatever you do, pick an organization system or a strategy and put it into use. I like using Outlook Calendar because it's free and it's generally, I can sync it across all of my different devices. But there is something to be said about using an old school planner, like these Erin Condren planners down here. You might use both of those systems, but whatever you do, pick a system and implement it. So when you've decided on what kind of calendar or organizational system you're going to use, start feeding in information. You're going to write your due dates in your calendar and your planner, and then set multiple reminders. Reminders are awesome, and that's the cool thing about syncing in Outlook. You can sync them across all of your devices. You'll notice in the syllabus and in Canvas, and I apologize in advance if I say Google Classroom, because that's what I use with my high schoolers. So if I say that, I mean Canvas. But there's a nice, neat calendar here, and it has assignments due, and all of the dates are there. So you could go ahead and print this out or pull it up on your screen and write it in your planner, and you're already taking that first step to being proactively organized. The other thing is I would say check Canvas often. I usually do at least one announcement, usually at the beginning of the week. And obviously it's going to be that welcome to this week. This is the thing that we're looking at. Here's the things you need to do. But I may post more depending on where we are, what the situation is, and, whether or not I need to give you feedback on something. So the next thing I would recommend that you do is, once you see what's expected of you for that week, I would break it down into smaller pieces, smaller steps. I would recommend that you read your assigned readings beforehand, and I'm going to talk a little bit about some strategies that you can use in a little while when you're doing that. I would also expect that when you get to your assignments, you're going to read the instructions, and then watch the video. There's usually going to be a video that walks you through that assignment. There's some that don't have it, but those are usually self-explanatory, assignments like a quiz or whatever. If you need to ask any questions before you get started, email me, but don't wait for me to respond back to you to get started. Go ahead and start. But I will do my best to get back to you as soon as I can. But don't hinge your, especially if you wait towards the end of the week, if you're waiting on me to answer a question and I don't get back to you for 24 hours, then you've lost 24 hours. You can do a draft assignment, then you're going to review and modify your work. And if you need to submit that to me to see if you're on the right track, I'll be happy to look at it. But another thing that's good about submitting things before the due date is sometimes I'm able to look at your work in more detail, and I can get back to you and say, hey, you really missed the mark on this particular aspect. And this is going to be important when we get to the paper, okay? But by submitting early, you give me more time to give you useful feedback. So what are some common mistakes that you need to avoid? Well, first of all, procrastination. And procrastination is something that I suffer from still to this day. I think it has something to do with wanting to work under pressure and maybe feeling like I work better under pressure. And I'm sure there's a research study out there. So I'm going to write that down and make that a priority to look at for this term. But procrastination is your enemy. You want to get started as soon as you can and approach things with enthusiasm. Don't wait to the last minute, and try to block the time in your week off so that you're not trying to cram a huge amount of stuff into a small amount of time. The next mistake that I would suggest you try to avoid is just skimming or reading lightly the instructions for assignments. Most assignments have a template, and I've worked really hard to provide you with clear instructions in those templates that are already set up to where all you have to do, especially when we get to the statistics portion, all you have to do is run your analysis, copy your results, and then answer some questions, and it'll say type answer here, okay? Templates are important because they keep the format of things standardized across a document or across a publication. You're all going to have this lovely book right here. If you're planning on going to graduate school, familiarize yourself with this book now, because it's going to be your companion. But this is the APA Publication Manual, the 7th edition, and it tells you not only how to reference things and how to make a citation, but it also tells you how to format things. And we in the research world really like common formatting because it makes things easier to read. So using the same font throughout the entire document. These are habits that you need to develop at the beginning of any assignment, okay? Not just thinking of this paper that you have to write. So if I have an assignment for you to do, and I want you to write a reflection about something, I expect that assignment to be written following the APA format, which would be double-spaced, 12-point font, limited to one specific font. Times New Roman is the first one that comes off the top of my head, and that it's consistent throughout the document. That speaks highly to your ability to follow directions. And if you're wanting to go to graduate school, that is something that you're going to need to do. So piggybacking off of those instructions, if there is a template, use it. And then if I'm able to give you feedback, incorporate that feedback. So maybe somebody submits their assignment early, I'm able to look at it and I see that there was something that was misinterpreted, and I make an announcement saying, hey guys, I know your assignment's coming up this week. I would just want to point this out to you. Okay. So incorporate that feedback, but I'm not going to chase you down to get a resubmission. So statistics is a course that is daunting for a lot of people, and I know this is non-experimental research methods and statistics, but a good half of this course is going to really work with statistics. Which statistic do I choose? Why do I choose it? How do I do it? And how do I interpret and present that? So how you should study for that is a little different than the way you would study for just a regular exam where you're going to talk about multiple choice questions or whatever. But you're going to be asked to maybe calculate by hand or maybe calculate using a statistical program a certain statistic. Maybe you're asked to do a correlation. I highly recommend that you check in the lecture video, because there's going to be where I walk you through it in the lecture video. And then more than likely, there's going to be a separate example, and it's going to be a separate video. And in that video, I will have a data set that you can pull up on your own computer at the same time. And you can watch the video and you can walk yourself through how to do that statistic in the software, Jamovi, and you can see it at the same time. So you're getting this hands-on experience. And then you can check your output and you can see, well, oh, my output was an R of 0.6. Dr. Gonzalez's was different. Where did I go wrong? Okay. And that's where I say that would be a great time where you screenshot something and send me an email and I can say, hey, let's walk through this and we can figure out where you went wrong. But those practice problems are really important before you get to that assignment where you're going to be asked to do what was presented in the lecture notes. It's not only important for you to be able to know how to do a statistic, it's also important for you to be able to know when that statistic is important and why we've chosen it for that specific situation. So this course is non-experimental research methods and statistics. And one of the statistics that we're going to focus on is correlation, Pearson's R. So that said, you need to know why that's the appropriate statistic for your research design. And we're going to build to that. So knowing how to do it is not just the be-all, end-all. We need to know why it's important. And then, again, I've said this multiple times. I'll just reiterate it again. Don't wait until the last minute to do all of these things. You may think, oh, I've got this, no problem. That she's given me examples and all this stuff. And you wait until 3 hours before the assignments are due on a Sunday or a Monday or whatever, and you find yourself stuck. Well, that's why we've broken our time down into smaller chunks, our assignments into smaller chunks, and we're approaching it with plenty of time so that we're not waiting to the last minute to produce something that's not our highest quality of work. So we've talked about how an asynchronous online class lacks the interactive component that you would see of an in-person class. And one of the things I expect my in-person students to do is to take notes from an active perspective. So each week, each module, there's a lecture video and there's an accompanying PowerPoint. Obviously the PowerPoint's in the video, right? But you can print out those lecture notes, and I highly recommend that you do, because when you print them out, you're able to take a pen and make that physical brain-hand connection. And you can write all over them, you can highlight them, you can put a big question mark and a sticky note on things that you don't understand, and then you can go back and clarify. So if you look at the graphic that's in this slide here, you'll see that there is a, let me grab this. You'll see that there are several steps to this active note-taking process. The first one, you're going to read and do your assignments, your reading assignments beforehand. That way you know what's, what we're doing, what we're talking about. And I highly recommend using something like the Cornell note-taking down here. You can check out this link. This link will show you how to use the Cornell system to take notes. But it's a wonderful system that has been very useful to me to be able to take notes when I'm reading more than anything. Step 2 says take notes in class. Well, that would be where you watch the lecture video. Step 3, you're summarizing those notes after class. Probably do it on the same notes themselves, but it helps to solidify that information in your brain. And that also leads you into this portion, asking questions. Where did I go wrong? Where do I need additional help? Where did I not understand something? And then 5, you're going to take everything that we've learned and you're putting it into action through those assignments. And all of those assignments are building up to that final paper. So note-taking is important, even if it is just pre-printed PowerPoint with your ramblings on it. Student engagement is another thing that you should really try to build into your weekly routine for this course. Read those announcements. I usually make one per week, and I usually turn the comments on so that you can clarify or ask questions there as well. If I give you feedback on something, review it. It's going to help you in the end, trust me. If I'm asking you to write your literature review in week 2, that literature review is going to be a component of your final project, your research proposal, your paper, and that's 30% of your grade. So I'm going to give you feedback on that literature review, and that feedback needs to be incorporated in that final part. And then revisit the content. So everything in this class builds on something you've already seen. Exams 1, 2, and 3 are going to be only limited to specific information, right? So whatever we covered in weeks 1 through 4 is on exam number 1. But the final exam is cumulative or comprehensive, which means it covers everything that we've talked about in the course. And I try to offset that being such a big thing by letting you use your notes on that one, and it being open book. The other exams, we'll talk about that in the syllabus, but everything builds up to something in the end. So everything has a purpose and a place in this course. So revisiting that content is going to help you in the end. If you find yourself slipping, if you find yourself confused, if you find yourself in a point where you go, I don't know where to begin, ask for help, and ask for help early. So don't wait until the due date to ask a question. You can always email me. Some of those discussion boards are set up to where you can get help from your peers on certain things as well. When you do email me about a question or a confusion or whatever, maybe you need to be specific and include maybe a screenshot. If you're having trouble getting Jamovi, the software program, to do what you need it to do, I might say, hey, go back and send me a screenshot of what you've got there. And that will help me be able to address your issues. But the big deal is you need to make sure that you ask these things before the deadline, which is the due date, right? And then if you need an extension, please email me. I've never not granted an extension. But it's much easier for me to keep track of them and to grade you fairly when I'm able to know who's asked for an extension and who's just turning in work over here that's late and needs to be, have some points deducted. So reach out via email, attend the office hours. If those office hours don't work for you, email me so we can set up some that do. So you are in control of your success. And what that means is you need to take responsibility for the grade that you want to achieve in this course. If your goal is to simply pass with a C, I respect you, whatever. If your goal is to make an A so you can keep that 4.0, I will do everything that I can to help you. But you are ultimately in control of your own actions. So a good professor or instructor or teacher does not wish failure upon their students. If they take joy from giving you a hard test and seeing 90% of the class fail, I really feel like they're in the wrong profession. A good instructor or a good professor wants you to be successful, and success is mastery of the information and the objectives that we're presenting for that course, okay? So I don't want you to fail. I hate it when students fail. But that said, I can do whatever I can to help you within reason and following ethical guidelines, right? I'm not going to just give you a grade. Your grade will be earned. But I will do what I can to help you achieve that success, including putting this video out so that you know what's expected of you and you know what are some skills that you can implement, right? But if you see yourself slipping, reach out, because it's not just me. There are other resources that I can connect you with, like the Writing Center, or just other resources that I can try to help you access so that you are successful, not only in this course, but in life in general, right? And finally, on that responsibility thing, just be mindful of the dates, including the drop date for the course, right? If you get to the drop date or close to the drop date and you see that you are not going to be successful and you've dug yourself into a hole that you don't see yourself getting out of, be mindful when you can drop the class, because inevitably I will have one student in each section every semester that does that to themselves. They dig themselves in a hole. They don't drop the class or rectify the situation and get back on track in a timely manner until maybe the 14th week of class, and then they're trying to know, what can I do? And there's like way too much work for them to catch up on. So don't put yourself in that situation. Take these skills and things that we've talked about in this video and put them into practice. So some final advice here, broken it down into 4 major points. Number 1, be organized. Use that calendar, use your planner, break down your time into sections, make that study time for this class be sacred, and keep a consistent routine. Be proactive and start early in the week by putting things out on the table, knowing what's expected of you, and then communicating with me if you have questions, comments, or concerns. So with that, I wish you all good luck. It's going to be a wonderful semester. And please reach out if you have any questions, comments, or concerns. Take care.